Okay, so round 3 of the tournament was the game after lunch, and my opponent was rated 1079. I'll call him C. He was another boy, probably 9, 10, um, but a lot more like controlled play than my last opponent. And I was got to play as black this time. Yeah, you don't have to find the link because I have it kept. Hello, e-repair. Good music you hear? Hope I'm well. I am well. I am reviewing games from a tournament I played yesterday. And the time control was a little interesting. It's pros and cons, right? The pros are got to play 4 over the board games yesterday. The cons is in order to fit all those games in, each side only has 45 minutes. So time is always a factor with these games. But I actually managed my clock pretty well yesterday, maybe sometimes detrimentally. But let's get to it. So this was my first game as black, and I got to play the Caro Con. And I got to play the Exchange Caro. All of these are book moves. Knight out to f3 is... actually, this is my deviation. This is my deviation. I should have just gone knight c6. I got confused here. I've been learning some Queen's Gambit lines for white, and in Queen's Gambit lines, sometimes you bring the bishop out to pin the knight before you close this up, and I just kind of forgot my move order here. This is fine. It's not an inaccuracy or anything, but I wish I had done the right move order. Yeah, closing the pawn chain. This was not a necessary move by my opponent. It's an inaccuracy because bringing the knight somewhere, like, this is a much better square for the knight in this particular position. Now I bring my knight out. They pin my knight. I bring my rook over, which apparently is an inaccuracy, but in Caro positions, often you can support the pinned knight with a rook to protect pawn structure. Because if takes here, then you have one lonely pawn against a chain of 4. So the rook is an idea in some lines, but actually in this position, queen b5 or b6 was stronger. So, you know, a little of this, a little of that. But I played the rook move, and then opponent castles here. Caro positions are often inaccuracies. I mean, it's possible. It's possible. Queen a4. Yeah, yeah. And knight d5. Knight d5. Or knight e5 can be brutal. Yeah, that's a good point. And I had those in my sights, so I liked the idea of kicking the bishop pretty soon. But realized I didn't need to rush it, right? Because this is adequately defended, and even if there was a queen move here, kicking the bishop defends my pawn. Because, you know, for example, if queen a4, queen a4, take, then this pawn is an issue, right? But if I just take care of it this way, it's fine. So opponent gets to kick my bishop first, and interestingly, another Caro inaccuracy here, I took because often in exchange lines, you take in the Caro. But Engine thinks that dropping back to h5 is slightly better here. Still negligible difference, but I thought that was interesting. So they take, and another common idea in the exchange is to put your bishop on e7 in case there's any pressure this way. Amuser, you would have done the same. Yeah, it's more like interesting things to note in the opening for this game. Like, we are dead equal here. It's 0.2 in white's favor, which for an opening, okay, I will take that as black. Bishop h5 kind of baits g4. For aggro players. That's what I need. I need to understand the minds of aggro players. But we've both been playing super solidly. Hip, normally maintaining a pin is better. Maybe the better question is why should the bishop have traded off the exchange variation? I'll need to review my Caro course about why trading in the exchange is often better here. The rule where the knight's on c3. Ah. So the knight wasn't on c3, which means that I didn't need to take here. And bishop b5. Oh, but it was on bishop. Okay. So, you know, like the fact that it was my bad bishop, however you want to define those things. Like my pawns are on light squares, so losing my light squared bishop, not the end of the world, you know? Okay, so yeah, they take, and then we were here. So I castled into it. It's always like a little nerve-wracking to castle when coordinated pieces can kind of like be over here, but I trusted my Caro instincts, and we're fine here. Rook comes in. I don't think this is a bad move. And I finally kick the bishop out because it's not doing anything here. So I just wanted it to leave me alone. And actually, I was kind of hoping that this would prompt the bishop to retreat to d3. Because if the bishop is on d3, the queen and the bishop are on squares that can be forked. And the idea of getting one of my opponent's bishops off the board was very enticing to me because I don't have the bishop pair. I don't want them to have the bishop pair either, just in case the position opens up. So that is what happened. My opponent goes bishop to d3, and I thought on this move, and I felt like it was a huge risk for me because I never know when to push pawns. But I made a great move. Made a great move. My engine is now thinking it's less great than it thought earlier today, but I promise you at one point today, the engine thought e5 was a great move. Alien, hello, hello. Yes, this is an over-the-board game I played yesterday that I'm reviewing. So I really liked e5 because no matter how you slice it, it will get a bishop off the board. If they ignore the threat, well, that's beautiful. I will take that in a heartbeat. And if they take, I still get the bishop, right? So there are other options, of course, like they could retreat this way, but even that works for me because I have the knight. So closing the position with something like this serves me very well. And so I went e5, they took, and I did get my fork. So I took the bishop. And it's funny you should mention an IQP, Amuser, and I learned this a couple months ago. IQP stands for Isolated Queen's Pawn. So it's this guy right here. It's alone, so it's isolated. It's on the queen side of the board, which makes it a queen's pawn. And I'm still learning chess. And here's where my learning failed me for this tournament. I knew the term IQP. I knew there was a particular strategy to play with an IQP. I could not for the freaking life of me remember what the strategy was. Like, not a clue. I knew trades were good for one side in IQP games, but I couldn't remember if the trades were good for me or for my opponent. And it's kind of like, that's the whole point. So the remainder of this game is the most boring chess you will ever see. I play so conservatively because I do not know what to do. Um, so what did I learn from this game? I learned I need to study what the frick to do with an IQP. And usually you're the same. It's probably best to keep the pieces on if you're playing to attack. Yes. So let's see how the game pans out, yeah? And I mean I just said it was boring, so why are you still tuning in? I promise there's a point. There's a point to this game, so stay watching. So yeah, they take the knight back, obviously. I slide a rook in. Krishna well said. Avoid an IQP if it's not part of your prep. Look. Yes. Also learned that from this game. In HIP, IQP is hard to play because trading down to an endgame loses due to a weak isolated pawn. So I need to find another way to trade off that pawn before trading off other pieces. Yeah, and unfortunately, even though e5 was a good move, the fact that it landed me with an IQP that I didn't know how to play with, in a position where trades are, they're not inevitable, but they are incoming, not great. So I bring a rook in, just kind of finishing up developing where I want things to be, and centralizing a knight. And here I offered a trade. Yes, I know trading with an IQP is not great, but I really didn't like their bishop. And I figured if we are going to head towards an endgame, I would rather have a bishop that takes here, right? I'd rather have my bishop to their knight. So trading, I didn't think this was a trade that white should take, but they did take it. And I took this way, which is best move. This is best move because it adds a defender to d5, which is very quickly going to get another attacker. An engine thinks that this position is dead equal. Absolutely dead equal. But I was nervous. I was very nervous about my IQP. How on earth do I keep my IQP when it seems like White's army can pretty quickly mobilize against it? So I moved my bishop to f6, which had kind of been in my sights for a while. Because now the knight cannot come in. And so I really liked my bishop being on f6. It was well defended. And if they ever did try to push a pawn here, I could consider this, or I could just grab a pawn back this way. So like it was going to be a tit for tat situation. So I really liked my bishop being there. And then they brought their rook to the open file to challenge me. And I made the decision to actually concede the open file for a move. And the reason I did this is because I thought that if they take, and only move would be to take, then this pawn has two attackers. But actually, this is fine because who's leading the attack? The queen. So if it had been take, oh, whose move is it? If I had just made like another move here, engine thinks g6 is best here. So if I had done that and I had done this, this would have been a terrible idea for white. So I forgot that leading the attack with the queen would be a problem. So I took the rook so they would take this way, and I could continue defending my poor IQP that I didn't know what to do with. And this was a mistake. But my idea was to slide the rook back to d7 so that my rook was leading the attack. But this is actually a terrible move because it completely drops my IQP. This is free now. Why is it free? Because if I take here, oops. So luckily, this wasn't a game blunder. Could have been if opponent spotted it. But opponent didn't spot it. They missed it with knight d4. Thank goodness. Otherwise, it would have been not a fun game. So now I play g6, which is excellent, and my idea with g6 is to make the knight not have any forward progress to make. Look at this. Knight has no spots it can go. So if it wants to stay in its outpost in front of my IQP, can't do much. So yeah, he just goes back, and I push this pawn. Why did I push this pawn? I think I pushed this pawn because I wanted my rook eventually to get here, and I didn't want my pawn to be backwards, I guess. I don't know. Hello, Lembit. How was dinner? What did you have for dinner? It is hard to play for an attack. Yeah, I was just trying to be in defense mode here. Which, you know, as black isn't terrible. It's not terrible. So yeah, we both are just like kind of in a standoff here with the same pawn. We're like, I save that pawn. I attack that pawn. Ha, 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 ha. And we keep trying to find inroads. That knight comes in. I prevent the knight from infiltrating here by moving my rook. Also adding a defender to this pawn. And I think it was around here that I offered my opponent a draw because I was like, this is dead equal. We're not making forward progress. We are both going to continue to try to shuffle around this pawn and not find inroads. He declined the draw. I was like, okay, that's fair. Let's keep playing. It's a boring game, but okay, let's keep playing. So he tries to reroute the knight. Not really any squares I can go to. So I bring my queen in, and my idea is that if I can maneuver my queen somewhere, maybe if he wants to keep playing this game, I can just start some kind of attack here. They have weaknesses to play for. Yeah, like, you know, it's... There are ideas to be had on the board, but they're not knockout killer ideas. They're just... If one of us were to make an error, but I was playing so conservatively in this game that I wasn't planning on making any errors. So he shuffles his queen. I say, nah, your queen's not going there. So he shuffles it back. I shuffle my rook back. He tries to bring his knight in, and I'm like, well, I'll move my queen over. And then he offered me a draw, and I was like, yeah, let's save our brain space for interesting chess. Not every game's interesting, and this game very much falls into that bucket. But what did I learn from it? I learned that I need to figure the frick out what to do with an IQP. Because I found myself strapped with it without knowing what to do. He offered a draw here, disappointed at him. Engine literally says all continuations are 0, 0, 0, like 0.00 across the board. Because it is harder to play as black 100%. Yeah, I think at my level, definitely it's possible to play for a win as black. Like, but once we found ourselves in this position, I wasn't thinking of playing for a win. I was just really hoping for a draw. There's enough imbalance for him to push. I'm quite passive. I am passive, but the problem is, in order to make a push, my pawns can have pretty substantial counterplay. Like, where exactly is the continuation here? Hello, James J. Henderson. Can't stay long. Looks like a solid game. Yeah, accuracy on this one, in case you're curious. Yeah. Opponent played with 93.5% accuracy, and I played with 93.2% accuracy. My one mistake. All of us made best moves, basically, at all times. Oh, no, that's a lie. Opponent made 3 inaccuracies. I made 1. I made 1 mistake, and this was it. If he had spotted this, it would have been a much more exciting